Hello and welcome back to another Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Steve. On the other end, it is Steve Hall. So we have basically two things to talk about for sure this time, Steve. That is, for one, the episode recording with Matt Ogus. I just want to get a recap from you, how it was for you. And then secondary, you came down with some type of stomach bug here recently. And I don't know what it is that you want to start off first with.
Yeah, so the chat with Matt. So will that have already aired? Is it coming out this week?
It has come out. It has come out just here this Saturday.
Yeah, so, man, it's crazy because it's similar to the experience when you meet one of your clients in person who you've been working with for months, if not years online. You feel like you know them and it's just completely normal, and it like you could expect it to be uncomfortable or weird or awkward because it's like someone you've quote unquote never met, but it doesn't. It just feels really natural. So we basically just hopped on and immediately like clicked, and it was just like we'd known each other for years almost at this point, and we'd spoken
to some
to some extent, but like we've known each other through watching each other's content and somewhat interacting. Like we've left each other some voice notes now and then, but not much, and like just some text messages or whatever, but never actually spoken one-on-one like that. But it just felt so normal. So yeah, we really clicked, even to the point where like I don't often get it with people where I want to speak and I'm like, oh, sorry. Like that happened a few times, I think, because we were so like clicked in that sense. I don't know if there was like a slight delay in sound, but I don't think there was. So no, it was great.
Kind of bromancy.
Yeah, and we spoke for 2 hours. We could have gone on for like probably days talking about just various things. And yeah, he's the same Matt Ogus as he always was. Kind of saw that come out a little bit more through the chat as we went on. But he's obviously changed a lot as a man as well.
There was one section that I found so cool just for you. And I think that you probably know what I'm about to say, especially considering what I said, I think at the last episode, where I said, like, I am so happy for you that this journey has brought you to the point where you are capable of having an interview with your idol that kind of shaped you to the bodybuilder that you are nowadays. And then there was this one section where Matt even was saying that you are his favorite bodybuilding educational platform or content creator, which I found to be even greater for you. Like, honestly, how much of a compliment that is, and how lovely it is to hear it when this was the person that got you into bodybuilding to some extent.
You know what? It's really bad to say this, but this is my honest thoughts. When he said that, it's going to be, he'd have to convince me somehow, but you know, when you just think someone's saying it because they're trying to be nice, because like he's on the podcast and stuff. So like part of me is like, is he just saying it to be nice and to please me in that moment, or does he truly mean it? And again, that's not very nice of me to say, because then it's doubting his like truth in that sense. So when I reflect on that and I reflect upon the person Matt is, I mean, it's unbelievably overwhelming feedback to have, actually. And I think at the time I was just like, oh yeah, you're just saying that, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, you go to a restaurant and they're like, oh, how is it? Oh, it's the best meal I've ever had. Like, sure.
I totally understand where you're coming from, and it could also very well, I can see why you may think that way, and there could very well be some truth to it, simply because of cultural differences. And I know that we have a lot of US listeners, but I also, from my interaction with a lot of US people, it is, how should I put it without sounding negative? Because I don't really want to make it sound condescending, or that I think one is superior or inferior over the other. It's just cultural differences. And I have the feeling that when people from the US are talking with you, now, there is probably also some local differences there as well, whether you're from the East Coast, West Coast, whatever. But it is more superficial chatter instead of someone like me, for example, as some people may know. I am very direct, very honest. And especially when it comes to US people, I've found that sometimes they can't really, or they don't know how to interpret that, and they don't know how to respond to that, because they think that my directness is impolite and being rude. Whereas the other way around, for me personally, when I was dealing with business kind of things, I didn't really want to hear like, oh man, this is the greatest thing that we ever did. And in reality, we both know that it's just shite. Give it to me straight, you know? And I think that there may be a cultural difference there. And this is why I do understand your thought process when it comes to this.
But like you said, it is, even if it has elements of that involved, which you can only speculate, it's still so nice to hear. Like even if I wasn't the number one, I'd still clearly up there, and he clearly listens to the podcast episodes, even just based off our back and forth and our chat. So yeah, really humbling to hear that. It's also funny you mentioned the cultural differences. I saw something online not that long ago where it was talking about politeness, where in Europe we have like it's polite almost not to look at one another and not to talk to one another, and like in a lift, there's no real chit chat. You just kind of look at your feet or whatever. Whereas in the US, it's the complete opposite, where it's like hi and like in each other's face a little bit. Yeah. So it's like those cultural differences are real, because when I heard that, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I don't like look at anyone when I'm walking around that much.
Yeah, and also these are subtle things that you don't really think about and notice if you're not really paying attention. So, for example, when it comes to the way that you're packaging a criticism or feedback, I think it's a more common thing in the US to just be very, very caring, very concerned about the way that you phrase it. Whereas for me personally, it's more like I get straight to the point of the fact what I don't like, because I don't see any kind of value talking about the already good things. Because we both can agree that this is something that is good, so let's not waste any kind of time here. Let's just focus on the things that we can improve, right? And this, of course, comes across of like, man, you have only negative things to say, when in reality, coming from my perspective, it's just like I want to, I'm polite in the way that I don't want to waste your time, my time, so that we then can get back to work and use that time more efficiently. And this is hard then, of course, even though that these two are Western civilizations and cultures, there is still a difference. And also then in the way of communication, that is, of course.
This is a bit of a difference between you and me too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more of that, I'll always try and frame it with the positives, and then try and like layer in the negatives to try and kind of soften the blow a little bit. But maybe I'm just an American at heart. I'm more than. And
it's not just a cultural thing. It's also, of course, a personal thing as well, because there are plenty of people who aren't like I am, of course. And we just recently had a chat offline where you said like, yeah, Pascal, you are different and a weirdo. And I can't even disagree with that. I know this. I'm very well aware of that. So, and I just want to point out that it's not the norm that every German is like that.
Although it is classically German.
I don't know.
Quite direct.
No.
That's like my interpretation, at least.
No. I think it's a myth. It's kind of the same as everything is efficient. When in reality, there are so many things that I can count up that are so inefficient in Germany, which is getting to the point of being ridiculous. So, for example, bureaucracy. Man, it's inefficient. It is unbelievable. Like, honestly, and even politicians just right now in Berlin, they're talking about lowering the bureaucracy for real estate, because it is such a hideous process in Berlin that it just takes such a long time just to get through that bureaucracy in order then to get kind of the allowance of building some new property. It's crazy.
Or playing golf.
Yeah. For example.
Which is so funny. I've had a number of clients talk to me about that, and they can't believe that you have to go through such a process.
And I can't believe, to be honest, that you don't. Because of course there is etiquette, there are some rules, and you need to be aware of those rules in order to play respectfully and also with a decent pace over the golf course. Because if you don't have those skills and the knowledge, man, you're destroying everything. You're destroying the game. And even in the rule book, it says that you should play at a decent pace so that you don't slow people down behind you.
Yeah, it's funny. So that's the reflections on that chat. I think hopefully people really enjoy it. Hopefully, again, it's received really well, because that was Matt's first podcast appearance. Maybe he'll be on all sorts of podcasts from now on, but I definitely want to bring Matt back on, because I think there's so many different avenues and things that we could talk about that I think would just be interesting to elucidate. Like, we didn't bring up Gymshark as an example. I'd love to hear about his experience with them and where that went, because I'm just interested in that sort of thing, because it's so deep within our industry. I can only say
that I enjoyed... So what I enjoyed, Steve, and this is something that we have changed over the years, is to make the episodes just as long as they need to be, instead of putting a cap on like an hour or so. And I also attested to then the other more popular podcasts that came out over the past years, because we received feedback in the past that the episodes were too lengthy. And then I think those bigger podcasts came out, such as especially Joe Rogan. I think he especially changed the entire section field, where then episodes were sometimes 3-4 hours long. And that chat with Matt was really feeling like a chat. I would have loved if you guys were in the same room together, sitting down face to face and just like chatting. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, maybe one day that'll be able to happen. He can bring over his 5 kids to London.
That's crazy. He's a machine, eh?
Yeah. God. Oh, wow. His wife's a machine, you know? Yeah, both of them, to be fair. Yeah. And then, yes, the sickness. So, man, it's so weird, because I didn't have, like, it wasn't like your common cold type of thing. And I'm definitely still holding on to it, because I feel, even sat here talking, I'm like, I feel a bit funny. But on Thursday, after that chat with Matt, I was exhausted. And I was just like, man, did that chat really take it that much out of me? I remember saying to Charlotte, like, wow, like, being that focused and chatty, like, clearly took it really out of me. And I fell asleep on the sofa, like, well, I didn't fall asleep, but I was falling asleep early, like before 10 p.m. and I'm normally 10 to 10:30 bedtime type of thing. So that was different for me. And then on Friday again, falling asleep early, feeling pretty damn tired. And my digestion has been, as I mentioned, it slowed down. I thought it was just like a consequence of prep and having a bit of bloat, but maybe there was something underlying going on that I've kind of realized now. Then on Saturday, woke up and I was feeling very tired, and I had to really I'd pushed my training session probably back like an hour or so than I'd usually do it. Went in there, got it done. It's the one we spoke about with the hack squat that I'd been like mentally battling with a little bit anyway. And I dropped a couple of reps to what I was expecting. And I was just like, hey, this is clearly, I'm like in the digging phase now. Like, I've got fatigue, performance is dropping a little bit, digestion's a bit off. And then through that day, I just was exhausted, and it was a real struggle to like really do anything. I still like was getting my steps in like a robot, kind of doing these things. And come to Sunday, I had this family gathering that was planned like a year in advance with my whole family there. So I was like, I need to go to this. And I was hoping I'd feel better, but I was still feeling exhausted. And I had like extra caffeine to try and give me like a bit of a push for it, but it felt like it did nothing. And then as we were traveling there, it just became overwhelmingly obvious that there was something more up with me than just comp prep related fatigue. The amount of fatigue that I was feeling was just like, it was excessive to what a prep should bring. And actually the only thing that it reminds me of is when I had COVID. You remember when I got that and I was just like floored. And yeah, it was essentially like that. And the other obvious thing that made it kind of clear it wasn't prep related was my appetite was not there. Like my mum made lunch and kind of I put it in front of me and I was like, I can't eat it. In fact, kind of the thought of eating it makes me feel a bit nauseous. So I just went to my bedroom, went to sleep for like an hour or two. And then we decided to leave because it was just a case of I don't want to spread this to anyone else, any other part of the family, and like I just need to get back and relax. Unfortunately, the journey home ended up taking like twice as long as it should have. So we actually got home really late, and it was a refeed day that day, and I definitely did not get close to my refeed numbers. I got home and I was quite hungry, and I ate. Have you ever had Malto Mateys?
Never even heard of that.
They're Lucky Charms, basically, but
Okay.
a rip-off version.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
Lucky Charms,
I've
right?
I've seen it on. I think in your home, probably. at
Yeah,
some point.
maybe.
Or maybe
I
a
buy-
vlog or anything alike. It also has
maybe.
the same kind of color and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So it's got the little marshmallow
Yeah.
pieces and whatever. And I really like those. And I just had some in the cupboard. And I was like, man, I need carbs. It's my refeed day. Let's try. Like, I think eating up is only going to help me recover. So I had 3 servings, which was quite a lot of cereal. It was like 120 grams of cereal. It was like a big bowl, had some milk in there. It went down really well. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm really enjoying this. And then after, I was so bloated. I was meant to have like a bowl of oats, like protein oats, and then a Ninja Creamy, and I couldn't eat them. Like, I started eating some oats and I was like, I can't stomach it. So I was basically on a low day numbers that day because I just couldn't stomach the food. And then woke up, and obviously with the bloating, and I was blocked up too, so a little bit constipated, and my scale weight's up, and we're just talking off air, and I've been doing a weekly check-in over on Instagram, which I feel bad because it's kind of like a MyFitnessPal streak. Like, I wanted to keep it going, but I was just like, I have no energy to post. I have nothing to post about. It just feels, like I just didn't want to do it. But I did even post. So I went to the gym yesterday because it was one of those situations where it was like 50-50. Should I go? Shouldn't I go? If a client was talking to me, I'd probably tell them not to go, but I kind of needed it for myself mentally to be like, if I can go in there and perform, I'm getting better, and it will give me confidence. So it was a fine session. It wasn't my best session. Didn't feel amazing, but it was fine. I came home and I was like, yeah, I feel like shit. I look shit, but I'm going to pose because this is what I do. So I did my posing, and I just looked over some of the posing. I was like, my front relaxed. I was like, normally I have quite a blocky front relaxed anyway. And I was just like, wow, like when I'm bloated in my stomach, like around the rib cage, which is already quite big, I just looked, like I said to you, like I looked one of those enhanced guts that's just bloated and like huge and distended. And I was just like, oh, it's awful. And so, yeah, unfortunately, in some ways, I'm glad that I have this like intestinal issue, or like bug, basically, because of how bad I was feeling. And I was like, if that's all prep, man, that suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks, and this is going to be tough. So it's good that it's kind of not that, but at the same time, I really, man, it's just give me if anyone is anywhere close to being as bloated as I was, like it can just ruin your physique completely. And so it's just important to get it, to not allow that to happen. So in some way, the silver lining is I'm not as fatigued as I thought from prep. The numbers that maybe I lost on the hack squat were related to being sick and not due to like fatigue, and my performance might be better next time. It was just a one-off, not like an accumulation of things. And it's happened now and not like a week out or day of. Imagine that being the weekend of the show. That would be, I wouldn't compete. I've seen people that happened. I've had clients who have got food poisoning the weekend of their show and had to have cancelled the show. So I'm glad it's happened now. Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts, Steve. First and foremost, of course, in regards to what it is that you just said, silver lining here is that it happened now and not when it is that you are supposed to step on stage, or kind of shortly before that, because sometimes those things, as we've discussed right before the recording actually, can sometimes take weeks to get better. So for me personally, my digestion is still like much better than it was over the past weeks, but still getting up in the morning with a kind of bubbling sensation of like, it's weird to describe, and then it's kind of fading away throughout the day, which is super weird. But then 2 other things that I wanted to actually then talk about, and that is the power of habits, which then can also be to your detriment as well in a situation like yours. I think that having a set routine and developing some very positive habits can be good. We've talked about it in the past, especially in cutting phases. They can be very helpful, but if you've consistently did certain things, it can be that you're then carrying those habits into a gaining phase where they are not as beneficial anymore, and you will have a harder time getting rid of those. It's the same though when it comes to a situation like yours, where it would be best to just be rational and say like, okay, not going to the gym now, not eating my refeed day here today, simply because it's probably counterproductive when I have somewhat of a stomach bug. But I feel you on this one, Steve. I would have done the absolute same thing. Whenever I'm sick, no matter what it is, fever and all that kind of stuff, I'm still getting my steps in. Like, how fucked up is that? But I just need that for my mental clarity. And we've talked about it in the past, how much we've matured in many, many ways. But still, this is something that I still can't get rid of. And I don't know if I ever will, because those are habits that have been ingrained for years now. And it's then super, super hard. So touching on the first point here as well, how hard is it for you then to get rid of those things? Even though that you know it may be better to just like pause those kind of habits for a short period of time.
Yeah, I'm with you, because it's one of those things where I even have the mentality of, I think those habits long term are incredibly productive, and I'd prefer to have them than not have them. But the ideal situation would be able to be mature enough to not execute on them when it's not rational and not a smart thing to do. But I do struggle. Basically, I'd have to be forced not to be able to do them. Like with COVID, I was so unwell that I just literally couldn't. But it's similar, like as it comes as an example. Well, and I'm still like, sometimes if it's a 50-50, I'll always go with maintaining the habit. So my mum was like, oh, I'll give you a trip to the station and like that'll, like you can rest and be all right. And I was like, well, I need to get I need to hit my steps anyway. So I can walk back. It's not a problem. And did that walk really impact my recovery positively or negatively? Probably not. And it's like the training session yesterday, I don't really know if it was a good idea to have done it or not, because it was like, it hasn't led to me being any worse today, but could I have been even better if I didn't do it? That's the question. I just don't know, because I never let myself rest. If I can, I will.
And I have the same way. I will get up in the morning and do my walk on my treadmill. And sometimes if you really, really feel bad, you're getting super hot, you can feel that it's probably not the best, and still you do it. I don't know. It's the same mentality as you, Steve. If it's a 50-50, I will always, not even a 50-50. I would even go as far as saying like, okay, if it's 80-20 or so, as long as I still can do it or feel like I could do it, I will do it. If I don't know, I had surgery and then the next morning or so, of course, it would be a completely different story, because you're simply not physically capable of doing it, right? But other than that, I would probably always go ahead and do it. Same goes for getting in my nutrition. When I was having my stomach issues, on that day, I was still trying my very best to get food in. Instead of just saying like, all right, no food whatsoever because I'm not feeling it right now. And I couldn't really have any kind of bigger portion sizes or anything. Even just a shake was too much. I had a hard time swallowing like just a shaker bottle, which normally I can easily chuck down in one go. And that was already kind of a struggle, and still getting it done. Now, the question then is, because of course, most of the athletes, especially you, Steve, you're at a point where you have a fairly good understanding of the symptoms and the biofeedback of your body. You can interpret certain signs. But I also hear, same as then the detriment with the habits, I think sometimes it comes at our detriment because we can't really differentiate between us having a clear issue or it coming from something like prep, or coming from something like overtraining in quotation marks, so very tough training sessions, and we just brush it off and be like, no, I trained hard yesterday, so it is just normal and expected to feel that way. I'm deep in prep, your situation, so it is normal to feel that way, when in reality there's something clearly going on that we should take seriously. And also this is the second point that I wanted to bring up. It's to our own detriment that the habits and the things that we're doing take such a toll on our system that if there's anything else flaring up, we sometimes don't really take it seriously, or may notice it later, simply due to the other negative effects of dieting and training and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was exactly that for me. That's why initially I just thought it was prep related. I was just like, oh, my digestion's slow. I'm a bit bloated because my, body's not, I don't know, just some changes, just the slow digestion and the fatigue is just high. It was a hard training session, or I guess I had a long podcast and yeah, I'm digging this week. We reduced calories a little bit, but yeah, because it didn't come along with obvious, like, I don't know, I was sneezing and a sore throat and like obvious illness signs. It took like my appetite being off to really make it abundantly obvious of like, oh, that can't be prep related. The fact that I'm feeling a bit nauseous and don't want to eat, like that's clearly wrong. So it is hard, and I think it's why there's just probably not like a perfect athlete. And it also probably is why, like, I was thinking of how could I deal with this better next time? And it's hard because you can't have that instant feedback. But I think I remember last time I had COVID and I didn't have a coach at that moment, but I was talking to you about it and you were just like, Steve, take the weighted vest off, because I was wearing the weighted vest. Don't worry about getting your steps in and just rest. And once you told me to do that, I was like, I can switch off. It was like I was being a robot and Pascal just programmed me and now I'm on a new program. So I think if I had the opportunity to communicate with Cliff quicker, which I don't have, it's not how his coaching works. And he told me just, Steve, like, hey, rest up. Don't worry about steps. Don't worry about trying to get refeed food in. Eat what you can. I think then I'd have been able to do it. But when I have a plan and like I've set myself a goal, it's really hard to be like, to auto-regulate it to that level. And I think it's probably a skill set that I'm probably better than I was. I was probably worse than this, but I'm still clearly working on it just like you are.
Let's take a short break and then be back with more of this discussion.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
I think that many bodybuilders, though, can probably relate to that. Of what it is that you just described, that we are very stubborn in our way. I think that in many instances in life, that's a positive trait to have. But also, of course, you can always then take the counter position and see that it can also be quite detrimental in many instances. But mostly, I think it's a positive trait, especially with getting shit done. Whether it is business related, whether it is then training related, right? But of course, in a situation like this is probably not the best thing to then have. And then it becomes even more helpful to have someone by your side who just tells you what you need to hear, because you can't rationally make that decision yourself. So you can't sit down and be like, all right, let me just count down or count up the pros and cons. And even if you have so much more cons in sticking with something, you can't make the final decision of like, okay, this is what what it is that I'm going to do, because that's not the person that you are. And once again, I can very much relate to that. I wouldn't do this myself. And just as an example, Steve, last week we've talked about me possibly implementing refeeds, right? Haven't gotten to it yet. Why? Because that's not the person that I am. I strive off of routine. And this is a very positive thing, but sometimes it really comes to my detriment. If something gets in my way of the routine, it drags me down psychologically. I'm getting annoyed most of the time. Quite an irritable person to be around. So when it comes to, for example, being on holiday and I can't really do my thing in the first half of the day, man, I'm getting annoying. Right? And with the refeeds, so today I was just saying to Katie, like, man, I would have really fancy that one pizza. There's a pizza place, a local pizza place that has been around since over 30 years, and they are doing amazing pizzas. I was just thinking about it here lately quite more often, and I thought, like, man, it would be amazing to have a pizza. I said it out loud here, and Katie just suggested that we have one today. I said, like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Without her, I wouldn't have ordered a pizza. I would have still stuck with it, you know? But sometimes you need that external, sometimes validation or guidance or kick in your butt in order to do something.
Yeah, no, I agree. Charlotte helps me do that as well. Like just doing things, like going on holiday as an example. If I was on my own, I don't think I'd ever go on holiday. I think I'd just be stuck in my fucking routine of just doing the same things over and over again. I'd probably work weekends just because that's just the way I would be. And I don't think that'd be a positive thing at all. So she definitely helps me break that kind of routine. But it's similar to, like, again, bringing up being self-employed. Like, I have to be very sick to even consider saying to a client, hey, I just can't get back to your check-in. I can't think of a time I've actually done that. I don't even think when I had COVID, I didn't get back to client check-ins. I think I still did them. I can't remember. It's only if I actually go on holiday and I physically can't do them.
I only had it once. And this was like, I think it's now already 3 years ago instead of 2 years ago when I had my sepsis. And I was feeling horrendous. And I possibly couldn't see. So the first days I still did do it and my situation got just worse and worse. And then there was just a time where I said, like, no, I can't. Today, sorry guys, I can't do this. This only happened once in the entire kind of career as a online personal trainer. Even when I was getting surgery on my titties, I was doing check-ins from my hospital bed the next morning. I still have those check-ins on my YouTube account, so that's always a reminder, sitting there with all of the equipment. And this is unnecessary, of course, right? But it just speaks to the fact of what you brought up, that there's a specific routine. And if you don't have someone else by your side who tells you, like, okay, here's the break right now, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Another silver lining I can say about this that happened to me, obviously happening now, and the other one is actually because I skipped my refeed day. So that's extra 700 calories that I would normally have. It means I had more fat loss, right? Essentially, I was in a bigger calorie deficit. I haven't seen that on the scale or physically.
You're bloated, right?
Exactly. But it will come. And it's just, I'm like kind of waiting for it to come through. It's weird how that can happen. I've had it with some clients. I don't know if you've ever had it where they're in prep and if they get a bit sick, and it's not so sick that they don't train for ages and that there's like big drops in the amount of food they eat, but they just don't quite eat as much. And then after a while, it's like, whoa, we just lost, like, we see that kilo of additional fat loss that we otherwise wouldn't have got because my appetite is not here either. So actually these days of dieting, there's some pros in some ways where it's like, I'm not dealing with hunger because I kind of just feel a little bit sick quite a bit. So there's some silver linings to getting sick.
There is. Actually, it's a positive thing to have food poisoning while you're on prep. Now, it needs to happen somewhere in the middle because it really suppresses your hunger, not just for one day, but for several days and sometimes even weeks. That the hunger is just like, very much non-present or non-existent. And sometimes I would even assume that the stomach size is shrinking very rapidly. And then you don't even need that big of portion sizes anymore, which is also quite pleasant. So you start to feel faster full again and satiated. So actually get food poisoning while you're on prep. It's a good thing.
That happened. Actually, this exact thing happened when I had COVID, because my appetite was really down, and also I couldn't smell or taste. So I was having like bowls of granola just to like get calories in, like chocolate granola, I remember, and I just couldn't even eat. Like I was in a big deficit, but not so big that it was like clearly muscle loss was occurring. And I remember once I recovered out of that, I was like, wow, I've got really lean in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And also food is just way less appealing because I couldn't taste. No, I couldn't smell for quite a while. I couldn't smell things. And that impacts like your appetite and stuff. Not that a prescription for prep or a fat loss solution is to get sick. I definitely wouldn't recommend it.
No.
But at least there's some kind of silver linings involved.
There is. And funny enough, Steve, I thought about it as well whenever I had something like stomach issues or so. And the time when I wasn't cutting, I was actually then hoping that I was, because it has, as fucked up as it sounds, some positive aspects to it for a cutting phase. It suppresses your hunger. You can't really eat that much. Most of the time, you still can manage to get the protein in if you are somewhat creative and if it's not too severe. And this way, I mean, if you're like us and you still maintain those other habits as well, yes, you may not feel as great during that time, but you're cutting up anyway, so you're not feeling the greatest anyway to begin with. So yeah, just write it out.
It's that, especially if you take the lower end of what is deemed kind of quote unquote optimal protein now, like 0.7 per pound. That's really quite low for a lot of people, like 150 grams or less, which is not all that challenging to do, I don't think, when you're used to having a gram per pound, say. So yeah, it ends up becoming like a rapid fat loss protocol in that sense. Yeah, it's just that obviously, you don't want to sustain that too long because training goes to shit, your expenditure goes down, and everything just doesn't go well. So you're having the refeed today. What pizza are you going for?
It's just a margarita. Yeah, it's the best. I mean, something that we've talked about in the past, but it's not a Neapolitan. It is. They are. I can't even describe it, Steve, because they have like a very, very unique form of doing their pizza. I can't compare it to anything that we probably both had at the same time. It's a mixture of kind of American pizza, but the dough is much heavier instead of kind of fluffy and all that kind of stuff.
Like it tastes pan, amazing. No?
Huh?
Deep pan? No.
It's
still thin.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I can't really describe it. It is very, very good. Also, because they are using some herbs in their dough that I typically never really had somewhere else. And it's great. So I'm getting this one, and then it's probably back to a deficit here by tomorrow once again. And my weight has stalled, or not stalled, but it has been very, very slow here over the past couple of weeks, ever since the incident with the stomach. Funny enough. And I could always feel like every single time I'm getting up in the morning, it's kind of bubbling and growling in my stomach area. It's not growling due to hunger. It's more like just bubbling, right? That's the right word for it.
Fermentation or something.
Yeah, exactly. As if there is something still living inside my gut, right? That needs to come out at some point. And that leaves you bloated most of the time, also, especially in the morning time. Everything else is kind of relatively back to normal without going or getting back into too much details around my stool and all that kind of stuff. Everything else is back to normal. Hunger, I'm still a little bit careful with that when eating. I don't want to overdo it with portion sizes, and then I'm getting quickly to that point maybe of putting too much distress on my digestive tract once again. So I can't eat too big of portion sizes or too many vegetables. I'm getting bloated more quickly. That's something that I've noticed. I needed to cut out certain foods right now for the time being to avoid from getting bloated. And I even said to Katie at some point, right, there was a very, very long time where I didn't really had any kind of bloating, no matter what it is that I ate, which was an indicator to me that my nutrition and nutritional habits were very solid overall, that my digestion was very good. And then I didn't really change anything right now. And every single time by the end of the day, there's some kind of gassiness, even though that the portion sizes weren't big to my, in comparison to my usual meal patterns and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and that then ties into kind of the scale weight behavior, that it didn't really come down significantly. And then I had this one weigh-in, Steve, just I think 2 or 3 days back, where it dipped down to 72.9 kilograms. And then it shot back up again. And nothing really changed. Guys, my day-to-day business looks exactly the same each and every single day. When it is that I'm eating, what it is that I'm eating, how it is that I'm moving, is that, etc., etc. So nothing really changed. And then still there are fluctuations and all that kind of stuff, like massive fluctuations.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good reminder that sometimes, especially as you're getting leaner, like you're pretty damn lean right now, as am I, the scale becomes less of a useful tool because there are things that could impact it that are going to lead to larger changes than the body weight loss that you might expect even then. Yeah. And sometimes you can't even then use visuals to help assess and make changes to the program. You just have to trust that this has been a calorie deficit, and it is still a calorie deficit. I just need to see it through, because quite often actually in such a scenario, it can be stress related. And if you suddenly drop calories further, you're just going to make the issue even worse, where you're dumping more cortisol into the system, more water retention, or your immune system's suppressed, and that's why you're getting sick, and you make that even worse.
Totally. And Steve, on that note, and sorry to interrupt you quickly there, this is also the rationale as to why I want to play with refeeds, to see whether, and this is something that we discussed last week, whether it has even some positive impact on my digestion, even though that you may have more food and more nutrients to then deal with. But it could potentially be positive, right? There's only one way to find out, and that is to give it a try, to see how my body is responding to that. And I still have on paper, on the calendar, like 3 weeks to go before I wanted to end the cutting phase. And I am in no rush. I'm not desperate in terms of getting any leaner or losing some more weight. If it were to still stay stuck here, I'm totally fine with that, right? Of course, I would love it to go down even further if I can, but it serves always as valuable lessons for me. And it's not that I need to now make lower weigh-ins. It's not necessary or absolutely mandatory and necessary because I don't have a photo shoot coming up or I don't have a show coming up. Right now, it's just because I want to do it. And it's just out of curiosity and also further educating myself without any kind of deadline and stress, which is quite a relief because it allows for experimentation and being able to observe certain things without any kind of stress in between. For example, now playing with refeeds, or for example, not needing to be more aggressive when it comes to the deficit. Because normally I saw my scale weight not moving down. What's the most logical approach is, of course, to cut more calories. It didn't need to, or nor did I want to.
Yeah. And this is where I think some apps would suggest moving calories down, and that's where I think they aren't the best in many situations, because they don't take these sort of things into consideration, the stuff outside the numbers, essentially. So I think that's super valuable stuff that you mentioned there for many people who don't have deadlines. Even in my situation where I do have a deadline, the good thing with where I'm at is that I'm ahead of, I don't know if I can say ahead of schedule, but I'm certainly not behind. Like I could step on stage minus bloating and be competitive. I could probably be somewhat competitive with bloating, but no, don't want to do that. But obviously I want to bring like a certain level of condition that is like, hey, like as elite as I can possibly bring it. And via Cliff's check-in, he was like, hey, let's not change anything. Let's just move forward as we are. Let's get healthy again. I'm still good for the dates that we have. Like, you're going to be good and ready for then. So he's still very confident with that. And again, it's just one of those things where you don't know what's going to happen during a prep. So if you can plug in some buffer, like I like to plug in every deload we maintain, every like planned rough deload. Obviously, we'll auto regulate them still, but I'm not necessarily going to take them at maintenance. But at least that gives us a whole buffer week, basically, where we could take it or we could not take it, depending on how things go. And like I said, you do, like, your immune system does get suppressed when you're getting leaner and leaner and when you're in a dieted state. So the risk of getting sick, I mean, you hear it, competitors do get sick towards the end of prep quite regularly because little things we normally could fight off, maybe we can't. So by having a bit more time on your side, it's going to allow you to not have to make maybe abrupt decisions when really you just want to hold tight. So I think that was a good message.
And I also think in your case then, due to the deadline, right? Sometimes you need to make the hard decision of then cutting the calories, even though that you're already experiencing all of the negative side effects of a deficit. And then getting down deeper is kind of the digging phase that is required most of the time at some point. But it is hard then to also psychologically come to terms with you now reducing the food even more, even though that you're already kind of on fire. And this, in contrast, I am right now in a situation where on the scale, probably I wouldn't need to make those adjustments, but I don't have to because I don't have a deadline and all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm feeling fine. This is why I can still eat the way that I do right now. I don't have any kind of performance loss in the gym. I'm feeling fine on a day-to-day basis, not having any kind of mental fog or anything I like. Sleep is still absolutely all right. And this is why, sure, I could drop the calories without any kind of excruciating pain that I put on myself. But at the same time, I could also continue the way that I am right now for a little bit longer, because whether I'm now losing an additional 1 or 2 kilograms or not is not really going to make that much of a difference to me.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing I'd say is you could consider even pushing back shows if you have the ability to do that. I know in the US, there's way more shows available. So if it means pushing it back a couple of weeks, that might be worth it versus digging your heels in and just make yourself potentially, like you said, you're already on fire and then you kind of throw some petrol further and it's like, is that going to result in what we want? It's a bit of a risk, whereas just holding tight and pushing things back might be better, but it's not always possible, unfortunately. Like in the UK, I have the WWF Supernaturals. I need to be ready for that show because they're not going to delay that for me. Yeah, it's my one opportunity to get to Worlds.
One point that you also brought up with, I think it was the chat with Brian DaCosta, the competitiveness in Europe is just so insane. And we've touched on it several times in the past. But I was once again reminded about it because just recently I saw some US competitors and the conditioning of them. And I'm not talking about everyone in the US, that's for sure, right? I just want to make it very clear, not that anyone thinks like I'm talking about them. It's just, I saw them and they were in a very similar spot to where I am right now in terms of their physique. And they are talking about the first show and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking like, man, you wouldn't even be close to being competitive anymore in Europe when it comes to this. Yeah. So for me personally, I would never really consider stepping on stage with the way that I look right now. But apparently that wouldn't really be too far-fetched to consider in the US. And once again, I really want to emphasize that people shouldn't really take this personally or like an attack. Don't be triggered by something that I'm saying, right? That's all.
I think it's the point of it is there's people in the UK who step on stage, or Europe step on stage in your condition, but they're not doing well. Whereas
so you're not hearing from them probably.
Yeah,
right?
Whereas in the US, there's people in similar condition to you who you could see placing sometimes, you know? And that's the kind of like mind-blowing thing. And in fact, talking about the competitiveness, I have been blown away with, I think it's the last 2 BMBF shows. The BMBF Northern just happened, and there was quite a few, I think Germans came over as well.
Austrians as well, once
Austrians.
again.
Okay, yeah. And man, I was just looking at some of those classes and I was like, that was near finals standard with some of them. Some of them needed more condition to be like their best for that, but like the standard was just unreal. And actually, I've forgotten his name. You'll know the name. The guy that won the overall in the end. He was the lightweight. You competed against him in 2021 at the Supernaturals, right?
Nathan? No, not Nathan. Ethan.
Yes, that's the one. Ethan took the overall, which is mind-blowing because you look at the heavyweights, and they weren't small heavyweights. They were like stacked. So for the lightweight to take the overall.
An insane shape.
Yeah, his waist is non-existent.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's crazy to see him on stage, and obviously him and Nathan in your novice class. And again, that just speaks to the quality of competitor in Europe. But they were both like, Nathan beat me, and he was a novice at that, and like, he beat me at the 2 bros to my distaste. And then Ethan's just like, again, Ethan beat Nathan. Both of them future pros, like no doubt about it. They're unreal.
100%.
So, yeah, it's cool to see. It's cool to see it, but it's also like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is what I have to contend with. What have we done? We've made natural bodybuilding way too popular. Now we can't be good at it.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we've contributed to it being more popular, and also educating people on how to do it better. It's like we should have kept these secrets.
Yeah, it's kind of the dilemma, you know about something that is super, super good. You want to tell everyone about it, but then it's not becoming a secret anymore. It's becoming populated. It's kind of like secret holiday spots, for example, that is looking beautiful, or a very, very good restaurant that you want to keep kind of a secret for yourself, but it's so good that you want to tell anyone about it. But then the effect kicks in, and lots of influencers take pictures there, and then it's so overly crowded, and it becomes just like a nightmare rather than heaven.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I totally relate to that. So yeah, it's been crazy to see that with everything that's been going on. Anything else? Do we have any general anime chit chat, anything like that? I haven't actually watched anything for a little bit. I think I'm behind on My Hero as well. I need to watch that next episode.
Because right now there aren't really a lot of shows that are out, or that are very much interesting in my personal opinion. I started watching Windbreaker together with Katie, but I was never really the fan of Tokyo Revengers, and it's kind of fairly similar to it. Up until one episode, and then from that point onwards, things really changed to be very, very good, actually. It's kind of like, I think, episode number 7 or so, then when they were kind of in the theater, more I'm not saying, but that was actually very, very good. But nothing that really caught my attention. My Hero Academia now finally officially ended.
Oh, has it? Okay, I need to watch it.
No, with the manga. Not with
manga, okay.
The anime. And I'm not there yet in terms of the manga, so yeah, we will see.
I'm trying to think. I think My Hero is the only one I've been keeping up with the manga. I've been rewatching. So I watched, what did I say? I watched, what's it called? The House of Dragons. So I watched the first 2 seasons of that, and then I decided I'm going to rewatch Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And man, I really enjoy it. I think I don't know if I'm enjoying it more than when I watched it the first time, because you get the hype of everyone else watching it, and it kind of bigs it up a little bit more. But it's easier to follow along with the story, kind of similar to Attack on Titan in that sense, where you pick up on things, you get characters a little bit better, why they're doing certain things. So I've been enjoying. I think I'm on like season 3 now of rewatching that. So
have you watched the latest season of The Boys?
Yeah. That finished a while ago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you've watched that all now.
Yeah, I mean, The Boys is... So I'm not watching a lot of shows anymore, but what I like about The Boys is that it doesn't really take itself too serious. It's fucking with itself most of the time, right? Sometimes things are so over the edge, and you know that it was on purpose. Like, for example, with the sheeps.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah,
superpower sheep. Yeah,
but something like this, for example, or that what was it with the superpower and the web coming out of his
butthole? Yeah,
something like this. I very much enjoy it because it's like entertainment. It doesn't really try to be something that it isn't, trying to put its political agenda on you. It's just like there for entertainment purposes. And that's something that I did enjoy.
And you might like, as a trash TV alternative to The Bachelor, you can watch Love is Blind if you've heard of it or seen any. We've just finished the UK show. Is
it actually from Germany, maybe? Because Love is Blind is something... No, wait a second. Was it Love Fool, actually? Sorry. I have to correct myself. It was Love Fool. Do you know Love Fool?
Haven't heard of it.
All right, because it's also a trash TV format where there are couples inside the same mansion as singles, and they don't know who is a couple, and everyone pretends as if they are single.
Oh my God, that's awful.
It is very, very morally and ethically questionable. Like, honestly, it is crazy. And there has only been one show Katie, so far, or one season so far.
What I'd want to know is, I'd like almost want those couples who are actual couples to be married, so that there was like evidence that they're certainly a couple. There was one couple,
yeah, and the crazy thing is that they broke up after the show because she came then together with the guy that she actually then got together with on the show. It's crazy, actually. And then I don't know if you guys have it in the UK as well. And there's a recap show where every participant is then kind of getting together
best.
Again.
The reunion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, and that was crazy when then the ex-married couple and then the new couple came together. The tension there, and tough swallow, man.
It's what I tend to think is these shows tend to attract a certain type of person, like that would be willing to put themselves out there for everyone to see like this. So sometimes the stuff that happens is like a quote unquote normal person going on there wouldn't end up doing this sort of thing.
And I don't know how it is once again in the UK, but in those show formats, everyone, like especially all of the males, they have cheated on their girlfriends before.
Often, yeah.
It's crazy. It's kind of the norm rather the exception.
Yeah, it's like Love Island. A lot of them are kind of players and that sort of thing. They've had like 100+ partners. Yeah. They've got it in their black book, and I'm just like, you're 20 years old. You've slept with over 100 people. What the fuck? Yeah. Like, what are you doing? That's all your spare time. Like, it's kind of wild. So, but they're a lot of fun, these shows. But I recommend Love is Blind. It's a they've really nailed down. Like, there's no dead time, boring moments. Like, it's quite efficiently done.
I think that I've seen the wedding ceremony. Was it there where someone is kind of pranking her?
Oh no, that is what's that called? Like Married at First Sight or something?
Oh yeah,
maybe?
could be.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I have seen the prank, which is
horrendous.
Yeah.
To do something like this, and she was just like trying to get her shit together.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, people, if you're not watching this sort of TV, you're missing out because it's a lot of fun.
It is
good for bed to go to bed to.
Man, this is peak entertainment in my personal opinion.
And then the only other thing is, I've still been gaming. I've now got 5 badges on Pokemon because, like I said, we were delayed on the way back from my parents, so I'd me and Charlotte just sat there, and I was like, well, I'm just going to play Pokemon. So I had like 2 hours of gaming.
Man, I've seen Pokemon. The latest kind of reviews and trailer for Wukong. So Black Myth Wukong.
I don't know.
I don't even know whether it is from the same studio that did also Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all that kind of stuff. But it's once again an open world, and it looks incredible. And I always loved kind of Asian, as you may very well know, kind of Asian culture, Asian mythology, especially like Chinese mythology is pretty interesting. Also Japanese mythology I find very interesting, but it plays kind of in that world.
Actually, I think I've seen it pop up on my social media, even though I have no idea what it is.
Man,
people have been banging on about it.
I even said to Katie, like, I've seen this, and I'm always, every year there's a time where I'm contemplating getting back into gaming, and she said like, Pascal, you can do this when the kids are out of the household or don't really want to spend any kind of time with us anymore. And she is right. She is right. She has a point.
That's going to be a while yet, though, right?
Yeah. Another 15 years or so.
Yeah. Oh, dear. We're just big kids after all. So, you know, once they're out, you get to be the kid again.
Yep. Probably. So cool, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you have anything to say, anything that we need to know about, or maybe something that we should discuss the next time, please leave it in the comment section below. And we always love hearing from you and seeing what it is that you have to say.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, leave us a nice comment, ask us a question, be appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the episode with Matt and this one as well, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.